Celebrating 25 years of innovation, MHP has a long history of providing top-quality supplementation. MHP has also been the trusted brand of hundreds of world-class athletes, from iconic legends to up-and-coming stars, competing in all types of sports.
Huge shout out to MHP on their 25th year anniversary. How does a company last 25 years in the fitness industry? Hard work, dedication, and consistency.
25 years with the brand MHP, that's something big.
Congratulations to MHP. There's a reason why I was successful in bodybuilding for all those years. MHP, happy anniversary.
I'd like to thank my staff, our athletes, and all our customers for a great 25 years. Stay strong.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Ronline Report. Very special guest today. He is the CEO and owner of MHP, which is celebrating its 25-year anniversary. In the supplement world, 25 years is like 1,000 years. I don't think I can count on more than one hand the number of companies that have lasted this long. Gerard, first of all, welcome to the show. And I want to let people know, because not everyone, some of these young guys don't know the history of the sport. You were actually an excellent amateur bodybuilder in an era where, I'll say it, the amateurs then were better than a lot of the pros today for sure. Very, very hard to turn pro. And you were, geez, you competed against some of the absolute best amateurs in the 90s, took third at the USA, fourth at the North American, fourth again at the USA. And, you know, all the guys that beat you pretty much went on to great pro careers. So can you tell me about, first of all, you started off yourself as a sponsored athlete by a supplement company, correct?
Yeah. So I started competing at a young age. Actually, my first competition, I was only 18 years old, and I did the Teen New Jersey.
Yep.
And won that. And then I went on to do the Teen Nationals and won that. And, from there, I, continued to compete. And I was fortunate enough to be sponsored by Twin Lab at the time. And at the time, Twin Lab was, one of the larger players in the industry. And actually, Steve Blackman, along with his brothers, that was the family who owned the business. And, I was fortunate enough to work with Twin Lab. And I learned, actually, my part of what got me involved in this industry a little bit, quite honestly, was what I kind of learned being a sponsored athlete with Twin Lab and seeing the organization that they were running and how it was run and the opportunities. And they were at the time also at the forefront of innovation. And that's one of the reasons why I liked representing that brand. Steve is a very intelligent guy, very well-researched guy. And, so being able to, at an early stage of my career, be sponsored by a brand like that, and then also kind of really, I really had an appreciation for the quality and the research that went into their products. And while Steve was kind of at the forefront, my own passion for nutrition and supplementation, because I relied on that, obviously, to try and be the best bodybuilder I could be.
Yeah. And
one of the things that I realized as I was doing my own personal research to see what research was out there nutritionally and supplement wise, I realized that there was like a void in the market. I realized that, while there were, products available to athletes, there was research on a lot of things that weren't really in the marketplace. And that's really what kind of inspired me to start MHP as I decided to step away from the stage and stay involved in the industry.
Yeah. So you were about 29 or 30 years old when you started this company. I mean, how hard was it to get it off the ground and, get the capital going and all that? Because it's not, these days, it's a lot easier because I could call up, there's places I could call right now and say, here, I just want my label on your creatine, your whey protein, and they do that. But I don't think it was like that back then. I think it was a lot more difficult, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was tough. A lot of people thought I was crazy. You're a bodybuilder, how are you gonna start a supplement business? And but it was very different. From a capital standpoint, I wasn't heavily capitalized. So But one of the things that had helped was I had launched a product called Secretagogue 1. And then also what helped, quite honestly, was that, people did know who I was from the exposure I had gotten as an athlete and being in the magazines. And so the buyers at GNC and Vitamin Shop, I was fortunate where they at least picked up the phone and took my call. And I think what helped was that the product was innovative. It filled a void. They had nothing like it was the first natural HGH enhancer in sports nutrition at retail. So that, that was fortunate in that I had something that was innovative. I mean, a lot of, what we see now, and, that's where, I got to advise a little bit of caution. You see now there's a lot of supplement companies, a lot of people starting up businesses, but if you're going to launch another whey protein, or you're going to launch like just a typical pre-workout, it's a challenge, so, innovation has always been kind of, what we focus on.
Yeah. And, you actually did innovate more than one, several types of products. MHP was the first to bring to market. You just mentioned Secretagogue 1 was the first HGH product. I believe you had the TRAC was the first nitric oxide product, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So now what's interesting is now you see nitric oxide is one of the biggest categories in sports nutrition. And it's pretty much a component of all pre-workouts. But in 1999, I launched a product called TRAC, which stood for time-released arginine creatine. And, there was a 4-gram dose of arginine in there with some other things to help optimize nitric oxide. So I was really the first product to talk about the benefits of nitric oxide for muscle pump and the shuttling of nutrients as well. I talked about in our advertising and our product. So we were the first, and we were actually with TRAC not only being the first to talk about nitric oxide. If you think about it, all products used to, if you remember, there was the creatine after your workout.
Yeah.
We were really where we positioned taking TRAC before you train with the arginine and creatine. So we really also kind of started the pre-workout category from a performance standpoint. You had other energy products,
right,
but as far as like a pre-workout performance enhancer, so TRAC was pretty revolutionary in 3 ways. And that was actually the second thing that really helped catapult MHP, the brand. So we had Secretagogue, we were fortunate. That product did very well for us at the retail level for a real long time and still out there, believe it or not.
Wow.
And then TRAC really kind of took our company to the next level. The other thing that TRAC did was, at the time, there was the conception that in order to absorb creatine, you needed to load it with a lot of sugar. And we kind of, bucked that trend with research behind it that shows that, to optimally get in creatine, it doesn't necessarily have to be loaded with sugar, and that, over time, you'll get that same, creatine saturation in muscle tissue. So, a lot of people like that fact that they didn't have to, go dumping in a lot of sugars, because a lot of people obviously are conscious about how much, sugar they're taking in.
Yeah. Now you also brought to market, I think it was one of the first blended protein products, correct me if I'm wrong, Probolic.
Yes. Yeah. So that was interesting because, obviously whey protein had always dominated the market, and whey protein is a great protein. There's definitely a lot of benefits to whey. But, the research I was looking at, and I do a lot of research when I do, on just not really bodybuilding. I do it more on the medical side, from, how we increase protein synthesis, how we maintain an anabolic environment, and then how we prevent, a catabolic environment. And, when you look at all the research on proteins, while whey, was a great protein and got you it, quickly to absorb amino acids and quickly spike protein synthesis, what I found in the research was that, it dropped off fast. So, it wasn't constantly feeding your body the amino acids, required to maintain a positive nitrogen balance and maintain, a positive anabolic environment. So I looked at, the different release rates of proteins, and, and combine, different proteins to give you different releases. And then later, what you found is that, there's been research on different blends of protein actually being more anti-catabolic and providing better anti-catabolic effects than just whey alone. So, yeah, so that was another area where we were kind of ahead of the curve in the industry, and probiotic still does very well for us.
Wow. And how long has that been around for? I want to say about 20 years.
Yeah, well, so probiotics, 2004.
Okay. Yeah. 18 years is coming up on it.
Yeah.
And last but not least, this is one I took for years. And I used to love this after my workouts. And I believe it was probably the first dedicated post-workout product, Dark Matter. How did that come to be?
Yeah, well, again, it was, looking at, a lot of people were looking at whey protein as post-workout.
Yep.
Or amino acids as post-workout, and, definitely beneficial. But, there were other things that nutritionally that your body needs post-workout. So what we did is we actually looked at research, and we actually use a blend of amino acids, of essential amino acids, a specific blend that increases protein synthesis like 360%. So it's a lot more effective than whey protein for quickly getting you in a positive, protein synthesis anabolic environment. And then obviously, we talked about the earlier, pre-workouts loading you up with sugar. Truthfully, post-workout is when you need those carbohydrates more so, because, you want to replenish those glycogen stores. And then also you do want to have some elevation of insulin, because insulin is very anabolic and then helps shuttle a lot of nutrients and carry a lot of nutrients as well. And then the other thing that, that the product does that people don't realize is, there's an anabolic effect to cell volumizing. So, the creatine, not only is it replacing ATP, but we have creatine and glycerol in there to help volumize the muscle, again, to optimize that post-workout anabolic effect that goes on in the body. There's an opportunity there.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious if I'm the only one who did this. I used to put it in the refrigerator, mixed up in the shaker bottle. And if I left it like overnight, it would turn almost like into Jello, and I could eat it with a spoon. It was delicious. The blue raspberry.
Yeah. People love the consistency. That's mostly the waxy maize that's in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it turns into almost like you said, like a jelly, consistency. So that's another, added feature that people happen to like about the product.
Yeah. It was like a dessert,
Yeah.
Man. And another thing, I'm just curious, what's the top selling products right now for MHP?
Well, Dark Matter still does well. Expel, our diuretic. We've been #1 in that category for a really long time. So that does really well. And T-Bomb. T-Bomb's been, it's in its 3rd generation right now. It's T-Bomb 3 Extreme. But that product, has held the test of time. Our T-Bomb 3 Extreme is one of the only products that actually has a clinical study on the actual formula itself. So it's not just a study on one of the ingredients. The formula itself has a clinical study on highly trained athletes, which is important because that's our market. That's who's using our product.
Yeah.
And it shows that, you'll get elevations of like 32% increases in testosterone, but without any increases in estrogen over the placebo. So, so it's a time-tested product. People really like it. I think one of the things that, that has allowed us to withstand and be in this industry for 25 years is the efficacy, and that the products, work. So, our product cycle is not short-lived. It's, we have some products that have a pretty long life cycle.
Yeah. I mean, Expel, I know so many competitors, coaches, that's a product that's used all the time for people that don't want to take any chances with pharmaceutical diuretics like Diazide, Aldactone, Lasix.
Yeah.
It's very effective. It's not as harsh. It's not going to put you in the hospital, but it's something a ton of competitors use to get rid of the water right before hitting the stage. And that's been around almost as long. I want to say 20 years too, right?
Yeah, almost 20 years. Yeah. Actually 21 years.
Wow.
So, and the thing, like you said, we know that obviously some athletes are using different diuretics and whatever, but that's very hard. The pharmaceutical diuretics are very hard to predict. They work differently in people. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's hit or miss with those.
Yeah.
So as we're expel, it's a natural, it's effective, but it's natural. So it's a little bit easier, for you to kind of monitor what's going on, so yeah, so it's been very widely used by, bodybuilders, bikini athletes, fitness competitors.
Yeah, I can say Diazide, just in my experience, about half the time, it flattens you out like crazy. I remember one time I used it and my foot cramped up in this shape and I couldn't unbend my foot. It was like a bird claw. It was horrible. But enough about the product. Let's talk about the athletes. You've sponsored a lot of amazing athletes over the years. Who were some of the first athletes you had? Who were some of the longest running athletes that you had with the company?
So one of the first athletes, in the beginning, obviously I was able to utilize myself because I still had a name and a presence in the industry. And then one of the first athletes was actually Jason Arns.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine. We both used to train at Diamond Gym and a lot of the same gyms. And he got his pro card and I brought him on board, and it was great working with him. And then of course Victor Martinez was pretty early on. Victor was with us for I think roughly 16 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so and we built a really good relationship over the years. But we had Victor really kind of right before he really surged on as one of the best in the industry, and in my opinion is still one of the best of all time. Victor for sure. If you look at his physique and and his accomplishments, and I really think that Victor is one of the all-time best.
Yeah.
And so that was a long relationship. Then we had a lot of athletes actually. We had Jose Raymond, we had John De La Rosa, Anthony Champagne, Dana Lynn Bailey was also with us.
Yeah.
That's
right.
Shira was with us. And I apologize if I'm missing some other people along the years that that have been with us in the sport of bodybuilding. And then we also had one of the other areas that MHP focused on a lot was powerlifting and strongman. So I think there was a time when we've had probably a handful of maybe 10 various world record holders or more all at the same time, from Gene Richlack, who was the first guy to assisted shirt bench over 1,000 pounds, Joe Mazza, multiple world-class records, Sean Frankel, Brian Siders, so we had a whole list of Rob Leondo. And then on the strongman side, we had Phil Pfister, who was
Phil,
world's strongest man. We had Brian Shaw. We had Thor, Hathor. We had Drunas. Yeah, at one time we actually had all three of those guys, and they were pretty much the top three in the game at the time. So, but I always liked that. I always liked powerlifting, and as much as I was a bodybuilder, I also had an admiration for the strength athletes as well, because it's a different type of training. The dieting, obviously they don't have to deal with, unless they're making weight, the guys who have the weight class, but it's not as drastic. But what I've noticed about the powerlifting athlete is the dedication to their regimen. So that's something I always admired about them, is like they're very methodical about their training, and how they, if bench press is their specialty, and how they peak up to a show. And then you have the guys that do all three lifts. So always had admiration for that. And then honestly, the strongman to me, kind of what they put their bodies through, and they're kind of like the epitome of maximum human performance. So that kind of was, for me, a very good fit for our brand, because these guys really are just that. They're the epitome of maximum human performance. I mean, these guys are, you look at them now too, they're just not lifting, heavy things. They're doing, they're moving things. They're, so it's,
the Arnold Strongest Man is a show. I I don't go to strongman shows on my own volition, but they have it at the Arnold every year. And that's to me more exciting than a lot of the divisions that I have to cover. And I won't say which ones, but man, I can remember at least a couple of years where every single one of those guys on stage had an MHP shirt on. So you were sponsoring pretty much the whole lineup.
Yes.
And it's exciting. I can remember, I think one of the years, was it Brian Shaw? One of the years that they won, they were doing things like they had to flip a rock a million times. They had to go up a ramp, run up a ramp with this structure around it. It was like 1,000 pounds of wood and iron.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy, but it's so
crazy.
Entertaining.
It is. And what's interesting too is, you know, Terry Todd, who passed away a few years ago, he used to run the event. He was such a good man and such a brilliant man. And he really loved the sport. I really enjoyed having conversations with him and, you know, kind of the science behind it all. But what I'm leading to is, if you also look at, you know, at how, you know, from when I started, how impressive these athletes were. But now if you look at it, like all the records continue to be broken, which is amazing. Like, if, you know, so we used to have at our booth, it's called the Thomas Inch dumbbell.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, we used to keep it at our booth and, you know, challenge people to see if they could lift it. And very few people, because it's like 176 pounds and the handles like this. Yeah. So, you know, you got to lift it with one hand. But my point is, you know, when we had that, it was, you know, very few even professional strongmen could do it. Yeah. And now they've changed actually to where it's like, I think it's over like 220 pounds now. Wow. So it just kind of goes to show, you know, the amazing, the training and the evolution of strongman and sports in general. You know, you just look at, you look at the evolution, and that's, you know, part of maximum human performance. That's kind of what I enjoy in this industry, and, you know, not just bodybuilding, but of course bodybuilding, and, you know, but really, you know, all athletics, all athletes. It's really admirable how athletes kind of, you know, tunnel into whatever sport it is, and then just do whatever it takes to kind of reach those goals. You look at high school athletes now, you know, their regimen is unbelievable. I mean, they all, you know, the kids they got speed coaches, strength coaches, you know, but, you know, so you really see the difference. You really see the difference that all these, you know, all the training and the discipline, you know, you see it in the evolution of the athlete. So you're seeing it from their training perspective, the nutrition perspective, the supplementation perspective, and the athletes just keep getting bigger, faster, and stronger, which is interesting.
Yeah, and you also have sponsored and continue to sponsor some UFC fighters, correct?
Yeah, well, we're sponsoring Charles Oliveira, who's the lightweight champion in the UFC. So, and he's on a tear. So, you know, that's been great, because, you know, we brought Charles on board before he was champion, and nobody kind of, you know, some people obviously, you know, knew he had potential, but nobody really thought he would take it to where he's taken it. And, you know, his last 3 fights, he's just dominated. And, you know, so it's really nice to see. He's a great human being, you know, wants to give back to his community. He's from Brazil. So it's been great working with him as well.
So I'm curious, with all these athletes, do you help them out as far as when to take certain supplements? Do you design their supplement regimens, or do you kind of leave that to them and their coaches?
Well, we, you know, not all of them. Some of them we get involved with. Fabrizio Verdum is an example of somebody that we were very hands-on with. Fabrizio was training with Gerard Bunch many years ago, and Gerard and I knew each other because Gerard was a fullback for the Giants in the area. So I had helped Gerard with his supplementation while he was playing with the Giants, and then my phone rings and it's him. I hadn't heard from him in years, and he's like, "Hey, listen, Gerard, you know, how you doing?" And I'm training. I'm the strength trainer for Fabrizio Verdum, and he recently lost to Overeem, and, you know, he swears he's never going to be out-muscled in the ring again. And it's going to be, you know, it's my job he was his strength trainer, so it's my job to get him stronger. Wanted to see if maybe you could help him with the supplements and the diet and stuff like that. So, yeah, so we took him on board, and you know, he wound up having several, you know, winning the title and having several title defenses. And he was another great guy to work with. Really, I mean, really great guy. Did USC too. We talk about, you know, the sports that, you know, that really take full dedication. I mean, these guys.
I mean, they train like 3 or 4 times a day, don't they? Different.
Yeah, it's like nonstop. It's like, you know.
Yeah, weights, cardio, striking coach, grappling coach.
It's unbelievable, you know. So, you know, we have a rep out in Brazil that kind of works with Charles, and you know, she's like, it's exhausting just following this guy, let alone doing what he's doing, you know. So yeah, so their conditioning is incredible. So like you said, it's just, you know, they got to do strength training, they got to do grappling, they got to do, you know, their hand game. It's, you know, so it's a lot. It's you know, technique. So it's repetition after repetition. It's, you know.
Yeah, you just mentioned Brazil. I'm just curious. Obviously, this is a US based company, but what are some of the biggest markets outside the US for MHP?
Well, we do pretty good in most of South America. Is a good region for us. The Middle East does pretty well for us. Mexico. So yeah, so you're seeing, what's interesting is obviously when I started the brand 25 years ago, there wasn't much international business for anyone, you know. But we've really seen, you know, international business and the popularity of supplementation, you know, growing, you know, globally, which is great to see. So yeah, so we got some pretty good, you know, customers in a lot of major markets outside the US.
So like I said in the intro, 25 years is almost unheard of. I've seen hundreds of companies, maybe thousands, come and go, and that's a quarter century. I mean, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you've had to overcome? Because you're still here, and so many companies that I knew and company owners, they just didn't make it.
Yeah, well, I think for, you know, there's always going to be challenges. Right now is a very challenging time. Obviously, you got supply chain issues, you have raw material costs going up. So it's, you know, it's kind of just managing your business as tight as you can. I think I always think that quality and innovation is always going to separate a company from another company, because if you get caught in the commodities game, it's you know, that's where it gets really, you know, really tough. So I think, you know, developing, you know, high quality products that offer, you know, competitive advantages is helpful. You know, I've been fortunate. I've had, you know, you have to have a good staff. I've been fortunate to have a good staff of people that, you know, kind of see the vision and you know, kind of see the opportunity and also are willing to step up when the challenges, you know, come in. I always tell my staff that, you know, the harder the environment, you know, the landscape comes, I think that it's the bigger opportunity, because it's if we can adapt to the challenges and work our way through the challenges, you know, the weak won't. So that's when you have to be strong, and that's when you have to kind of, you know, really buckle down and get your team, you know, on point and just keep everybody rowing in the right direction. And, you know, you kind of weather through, you know, the storms that come your way. There's always going to be unexpected challenges, you know. So, you know, Russia used to be a great market for us, and then obviously you can't do trade in Russia, and, you know, so there's going to be, you know, there's going to be a lot of things. I ran into Brazil was one of my biggest markets, and then, you know, my distributor started counterfeiting my product. So yeah, so you run into, you know, so there's a lot of stuff, but you gotta be in tune to what's going on. And quite honestly, if you know, like the thing that happened in Brazil is like, you know, it may be in Brazil, but, you know, we're gonna defend our trademarks, and, you know, we got the brand back, and, you know, and we're picking up the business there. So again, it's like, you know, there's always going to be different challenges, but it's, you know, you got to adapt and you got to plow forward. And, you know, for us, I think a lot of it has been, you know, the innovation. I think I've been fortunate enough. I've had great athletes. I'm very appreciative for the athletes that I've had, you know, over the years with my company. and also the team, the employees, because, it's all about the team. It's all about, having a strong team, having a strong support system. And that's kind of, kind of what I think has allowed us to withstand 25 years of this.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about things like trajectories and re-trajectory of the brand. How do you keep innovating? How do you stay like 2 steps ahead of everybody? Because if you wait for the other people to come out with something, it's too late. You need to be
exactly.
You need to be ahead of everybody else and launch things before they do, or else you're left in the dust. I mean, that's got to be a challenge.
Yeah, well, that's where I spend a lot of time. So like in the summer, I enjoy, being down at the beach, but when I'm down at the beach, quite honestly, I'm doing research. I'm online looking up, different studies, looking up different things. So it's got to be like a constant commitment to innovation. And that's the only way to do it. Because you're right. It's just, you can't let your brand get stale. And if you wait too long, there's things we've missed, we were late and, but, you got to try and be, first to market, be innovative. And I think those are the things that'll keep the company relevant, the brand relevant.
Yeah. So obviously you've had to have a lot of vision to keep this thing going all this time. What's your vision for MHP in the next few years? You don't have to give me all your secrets about what you're going to bring to market, but where do you want this company to be in, say, 5-10 years from now? Because I'm fairly confident it's still going to be around.
Well, listen, the dynamics have changed, right? So, the retail environment's a little bit different. It's shifted a lot to online. The marketing strategies are different. So I think, what I see is just, making sure that we're always adapting to, what the marketplace is doing. I think, I am working on a few good innovative products that I plan to launch over the next year.
Yeah.
So I think those are going to be, helpful. And I think there's a lot of, we talk about international. So there's a lot of, that's something I did early on. I think that's one of the areas we accelerated in because I always looked at it as, America's great and it's a big market, but it's a bigger world. So I think you have to also really be aware of the markets, all the different countries and, where the opportunities are. Some areas are aren't ready. Some areas, are a little bit more difficult to do business in. So it's, picking the right markets, picking the right partners in those markets. So it's all that. It's, there's a lot of different things that kind of go into the success. And then I always tell, it's always also paying attention to detail because, especially now in competitive times, mistakes will bury you. So I'm not gonna say that you be mistake free, but minimize the mistakes, be analytical, be calculated in the things you do. It's call it like conservative aggression. You gotta be aggressive, but make sure that you've done everything before you pull the trigger and go at it, hard. But once you go, you go.
So final question for you. Social media has changed the whole world, obviously. How has it changed the supplement landscape and how have you adapted to it to continue to thrive?
That's a complex one because to your point, it's so complex. There's just so many variables that go into social media right now. And it's definitely an effective tool for sure. So I think, our strategy is obviously we have to continue to be relevant on social media. I think that's also where, the athletes, come into play because they have good platforms.
Yep.
And also some social media partners, and affiliates, and so forth. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes. But it is becoming more and more obviously a part of this. So we got to definitely continue to be a part of that and make sure that you also got to be smart. You got to be smart on what you do social media wise, right? And, is, try and be on point with your messaging, try and stay true to your brand. So all those things are important.
Cool. Now we're going to be talking again in a few months because you started another company you guys might have heard of, a little company called Muscle Meds. And that's how many years, what anniversary will that be having soon?
15 year.
Wow.
Yeah. So trying to juggle the two,
Yeah.
that's,
I mean,
that's part of it.
one's more than enough for most people. So God bless you. All right. So guys, the website, it's MHP Strong, correct?
Yes. MHPstrong.com.
MHP Strong. And then I think it's just MHP. What's the Instagram?
It's MHP Strong. It's MHP Sups. And then that's our main Instagram.
Okay. Yeah. So check those out, guys. Great products, great athletes throughout the years. And you continue to have excellent athletes on board with your team. So Gerard, congratulations. It's quite an accomplishment. It's a huge accomplishment. I mean, that's, like I said, 25 years in the supplement industry is really like 250 years in normal human time because it's so competitive. I know from being around you guys, it's just, wow.
Yeah.
So
it went fast, but when I look back, a lot of great memories too, like you look back at, I remember, the first Arnold Classic I had, it was a little table. It was a 10-foot table. And I was actually sharing it, not sharing it, but she gave me a piece because I was doing some work with Jantana at the time. So I had my own little table next to Jantana. So it's interesting, when you look at where you started, and then, kind of, over 25 years, the whole evolution, the memories, what you learned. It's been a great experience. I still love the industry. I still love it. I love the supplement industry. I love the sports. I love the athletes. So,
Yeah. And, I could give you credit for another thing is that a lot of supplement companies have tried to go mainstream just to appeal to, the high school kid, the soccer mom or whatever. And they've ignored the athletes, the bodybuilders, the powerlifters, the strongmen, the fighters. You've never done that. You've always kept that core, the hardcore, really dedicated athletes on your team. So props to you for that.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I feel that's our thing. Our thing is to really, kind of develop products for that athlete who really wants to be at an elite level.
Yeah. Maximum human performance right there. It says it all.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Gerard, thank you so much for taking the time. And again, congratulations. 25 years of MHP Strong. No small feat.
Thank you.
I'd give myself a little pat on the back if I were you. So that's it.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate it.
So continued success. I wish you and everybody. Thanks for watching Ronline Report with CEO and owner of MHP, Gerard Dente. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Take care.